You've got to be kidding me. WWE just buried the future of their company at Saturday night's main event. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed, two of the most dominant, most destructive, most over monsters on the entire roster, just got absolutely demolished by two part-timers who can't let go of their glory days. And before you start typing your angry comments defending this garbage, let me ask you something. When did WWE decide that pushing the same guys from 10 years ago was more important than building the stars who were going to carry this company for the next decade? Saturday night's main event was supposed to be a showcase. It was supposed to be the moment where Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed proved they belong in the main event. These two absolute units, these two specimens of destruction, were finally getting their shot on one of WWE's most prestigious platforms. And what does WWE do? They bring back Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns, have them squash Breakker and Reed like they're local jobbers, and then celebrate like they just saved the wrestling business. This is exactly what's wrong with WWE. This is exactly why young talent can never break through the glass ceiling. This is exactly why we keep seeing the same matches, the same faces, and the same BS year after year. Let me paint you the picture of what happened at Saturday night's main event, because some of you clearly weren't paying attention, or you're just blinded by your nostalgia goggles. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed came out first looking like absolute killers. These men combined weigh over 500 pounds of pure muscle and aggression. They've been running through the roster for months. They've sent people to the hospital. They've dominated tag teams, singles competitors, and legends alike. They were ready for this moment. This was their time to shine on the big stage. Then Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns' music hits, and the crowd goes absolutely insane like they're seeing the second coming. These two walk down that ramp with their matching Shield gear, because God forbid WWE let us forget about the Shield for 5 minutes, and they've got this smug, arrogant look on their faces like they already know they're winning. And you know what? They were right. Because WWE had already decided that the outcome of this match had nothing to do with who deserved to win and everything to do with who they think will sell more t-shirts. The match starts, and for about 5 minutes, Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed actually get to look competitive. They're hitting their signature moves. They're dominating with their power. Bronson hits a tsunami on Seth that should have ended the match right there. Bron hits a spear on Roman that looked like it broke him in half. But do they get the win? No. Because WWE has this ridiculous booking philosophy that says veterans can kick out of everything, but young guys better not dare kick out of a veteran's finisher or it's disrespectful. Then comes the finish, and oh boy, does it make my blood boil. Seth and Roman suddenly turn into Super Saiyans. They start no-selling everything. Roman hits a Superman punch on Bronson Reed that somehow keeps this 300-pound monster down. Seth hits a stomp on Bron Breakker, and suddenly this genetic freak who's been portrayed as unstoppable for months is getting pinned clean as a sheet in the middle of the ring. 1, 2, 3. Match over. Seth and Roman celebrate like they just beat The Rock and Stone Cold, while Breakker and Reed are left lying in the ring looking like geeks. Do you understand what WWE just did? They took two of their most promising young stars and fed them to the nostalgia machine. They told everyone watching that Bron Breakker, despite being a third-generation superstar with all the tools to be the next big thing, isn't as good as Seth Rollins on his worst day. They told us that Bronson Reed, despite being one of the most believable monsters in wrestling, can't hang with Roman Reigns even though Roman barely wrestles anymore. They sacrificed the future for a cheap pop in the present. Let's talk about Bron Breakker first, because this kid has been getting screwed by WWE since day one. Yes, he's a Steiner. Yes, he has the family name. But he's also put in the work. He's athletic as hell. He can talk. He can work. He has the look. He has the intensity. He's everything WWE claims they want in a superstar. And yet, every time he's about to break through to that next level, WWE finds a way to remind everyone that he's not quite as good as the previous generation. Why? Because WWE is terrified of actually pulling the trigger on new stars. Bron Breakker should have won at Saturday night's main event. I don't care if it was a tag match. I don't care if it would have been controversial. Bron should have speared Roman Reigns, pinned the so-called tribal chief, and announced to the world that the new generation has arrived. That would have been a moment. That would have created a new star. That would have given fans a reason to believe that WWE is serious about building for the future. But instead, WWE did what they always do: they protected their established stars at the expense of their rising stars. And don't even get me started on how they treated Bronson Reed. This man is one of the most underutilized talents in all of WWE. Bronson Reed has been a monster since he returned to WWE. Every single person he's faced, he's dominated. His tsunami splash is one of the most devastating moves in wrestling. He has natural charisma. He can talk. He can brawl. He can work technical matches. He's a complete package. But WWE sees him as nothing more than a mid-card monster whose only purpose is to make their favorites look good. Bronson Reed should be a world champion by now. Not the Intercontinental Champion. Not the United States Champion. The World Heavyweight Champion. But instead, he's being fed to Roman Reigns at Saturday night's main event like he's some random enhancement talent. The disrespect is astronomical. Bronson Reed has paid his dues. He got released from WWE, rebuilt his career on the independents, came back hungrier and better than ever, and this is how WWE rewards him? By making him Roman Reigns' latest victim? Here's what really pisses me off about this whole situation: Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns don't need this win. Their legacies are already cemented. Roman had a historic title reign that lasted over 1,000 days. Seth is a multiple-time world champion and a WrestleMania main eventer. They've already proven everything there is to prove. Beating Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed does nothing for their careers. But you know what? Losing to Seth and Roman potentially destroys Breakker and Reed's momentum. Think about it from a fan perspective. For months, WWE has been telling us that Bron Breakker is the next big thing. They've been telling us that Bronson Reed is an unstoppable force. And then, in one match, they tell us that actually, these guys can't beat Seth and Roman. So why should we take them seriously anymore? Why should we believe their threats to anyone when they just got handled by two guys who barely show up anymore? WWE just killed the mystique of two of their best young talents for a nostalgia pop, and Saturday night's main event was the perfect stage to create new stars. This wasn't just another episode of Raw or SmackDown. This was a special event. This was the kind of show that could have launched Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed into the stratosphere. Imagine if they had beaten Seth and Roman. Imagine the buzz that would have created. Imagine the headlines: "New Generation defeats the Shield." That would have been everywhere. That would have made people take notice. But instead, we get the same old story of veterans beating young talent, and now nobody's talking about Breakker or Reed, they're all talking about how great Seth and Roman looked. Let me address the idiots in the comments who are inevitably going to defend this by saying, but Seth and Roman are bigger stars. They deserve to win. No, absolutely not. That's not how you build stars. You don't build stars by having them constantly lose to established stars. You build stars by giving them big wins on big stages against big names. Austin beat Jake Roberts and beat him clean. The Rock beat Ken Shamrock and beat him decisively. John Cena beat Kurt Angle and beat him in the middle of the ring. That's how you create new main eventers. But WWE doesn't understand this anymore. They're so obsessed with protecting their established stars that they forget those established stars were created by beating other established stars. Roman Reigns became a main eventer by beating veterans. Seth Rollins became a main eventer by beating legends. But now that they're on top, WWE acts like they can never lose or their credibility will be destroyed. That's not how this works. Losing doesn't hurt established stars if it's done right. What does hurt established stars is when they look like they're afraid to put anyone over. And can we talk about the optics of this match? Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns are in their late 30s. They're veterans. They've had long careers. They've accomplished everything. Bron Breakker is in his mid-20s. Bronson Reed is in his early 30s and just hitting his prime. These should have been the guys to beat the veterans. This should have been the torch-passing moment. But instead, the veterans extinguished the torch and kept it for themselves. How very WWE of them. This is the same pattern we've seen for years in WWE. Every time a young star starts to gain momentum, WWE finds a way to pump the brakes. They did it with Braun Strowman when they had him lose to Roman repeatedly. They did it with Drew McIntyre when they had him lose during his first run. They did it with Apollo Crews. They did it with Ricochet. They do it to everyone who isn't one of their chosen few. And now they're doing it to Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed. You know what the worst part is? Saturday night's main event used to be where stars were made. In the 80s and 90s, SNME was where you'd see shocking moments, title changes, and career-defining performances. It was must-see TV. But this new version of Saturday night's main event is just another platform for WWE to do the same old garbage they do every week. Instead of using it to create new stars, they use it to remind everyone how great the old stars are. Let me break down what should have happened at Saturday night's main event. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed should have come out and destroyed Seth and Roman. Not in some fluke finish. Not with a distraction. Not with interference. They should have beaten them clean. Bron should have hit Seth with 3 spears. Bronson should have hit Roman with 5 tsunamis. And at the end, these two monsters should have been standing tall over the fallen Shield members, announcing that the old guard has fallen and the new era has begun. Can you imagine the impact that would have had? Can you imagine the buzz on social media? Can you imagine how that would have elevated Breakker and Reed? Instead, we get Seth and Roman adding 2 more names to their list of victims while Bron and Bronson are left to figure out how to recover their credibility. This is exactly why WWE's roster feels so stale. Because the same guys are always on top, always winning, always getting the spotlight while everyone else fights for scraps. And let's talk about the message this sends to the locker room. If you're a young wrestler in WWE, what's your incentive to work hard and improve? You can be as athletic as Bron Breakker, you can be as dominant as Bronson Reed, you can do everything right, and WWE will still feed you to the part-timers and nostalgia acts. Why would anyone bust their ass when they know the glass ceiling is real and it's made of Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns? The tag team division on Raw is going to suffer because of this. Braun and Bronson weren't even officially a team, but they were being positioned as dominant forces. Now that they've been beaten by Seth and Roman, who's going to take them seriously? Every tag team on the roster just watched two single stars with no history of tagging together beat two of the most dominant forces in WWE. What does that say about the actual tag teams? It says they're worthless. It says that two main eventers thrown together at the last minute are better than teams that have worked together for years. Here's another thing that makes me furious: the match wasn't even close. If WWE was going to have Seth and Roman win, at least make it competitive. At least make it look like Breakker and Reed pushed them to their absolute limit. At least have Seth and Roman look like they barely survived. But no. They won decisively, relatively easily, and barely broke a sweat. That's not booking a competitive match, that's booking a squash. Bron Breakker took one stomp and got pinned. 1. This is a guy who's been portrayed as having the toughness of the Steiner family, the resilience of a champion, and the never-say-die attitude of a warrior. But one stomp from Seth Rollins and he's done? Meanwhile, Seth has taken spears, chair shots, and every other kind of punishment and kicked out like it was nothing. The inconsistency is maddening. Bronson Reed is even worse. This 300-pound monster took a Superman punch, not even a spear, just a punch, and that was enough to keep him down for the pin? Are you serious? Bronson Reed has been portrayed as someone who can take inhuman amounts of punishment. He's been put through tables, hit with finishers, beaten with weapons, and he always gets back up. But Roman Reigns punches him once and suddenly he's mortal? Give me a break. This is what WWE does. They build up young talent as unstoppable forces, and then the moment they face an established star, all that build-up means nothing. All those months of making Breakker and Reed look dominant? Worthless. All those squash matches? Pointless. All that time invested in their characters? Wasted. Because Seth and Roman needed another notch on their belt and WWE decided that was more important than the future of the company. Let me tell you what's going to happen now. Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed are going to feud with mid-card talent. They're going to be in meaningless matches on Raw while Seth and Roman are in the main event scene. They're going to slowly fade into irrelevance because WWE has told the audience that they're not on the same level as the real stars. And in 2 years, WWE will be wondering why they don't have any new main eventers and they'll blame the talent instead of their own garbage booking. This is the cycle WWE has been stuck in for years. They don't build new stars. They recycle old stars. They rely on nostalgia. They bring back legends and part-timers instead of investing in the future. And then they act shocked when their ratings decline and their audience gets older because young fans don't have anyone new to connect with. It's not rocket science. If you want to build for the future, you have to actually push your future stars. Roman Reigns has already had his time on top. He had a 1,000+ day title reign. He main event countless WrestleManias. He's been the guy for almost a decade. When is it time for someone new? When is it time for Bron Breakker to be the guy? When is it time for Bronson Reed to be the guy? Or is WWE just going to keep running the Roman Reigns show until he's 50 years old and there's nobody left to take over? Seth Rollins is in the same boat. He's been a top guy since the Shield broke up in 2014. That's over a decade of being in the main event scene. He's accomplished everything. He's won every title. He's main event WrestleMania. He's had classic matches with everyone. So why does he need to beat Bron Breakker? What does that accomplish? Nothing. Absolutely nothing except satisfying Seth's ego and giving him another win for his record that he doesn't need. And you know what really grinds my gears? The commentary during the match. Michael Cole and Corey Graves were acting like Seth and Roman were underdogs. They were talking about how impressive it was that they could work together again. They were building sympathy for these two established main eventers like they were the ones who needed support. Meanwhile, Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed were being treated like obstacles, like heels, like villains who deserved to be defeated. The narrative was completely backwards. Breakker and Reed should have been positioned as the future that was trying to overcome the past. They should have been the sympathetic characters fighting for their spot. Seth and Roman should have been the arrogant veterans trying to hold onto their position. That's the story. That's the narrative. But WWE flipped it because they're so desperate to keep Seth and Roman as beloved babyfaces that they'll sacrifice anyone else's momentum to do it. Saturday night's main event could have been historic. It could have been the show where everything changed. It could have been the moment where WWE said, "We're serious about building new stars." Instead, it was just another show where the old guard maintained their position and the young talent learned their place. And that place, apparently, is beneath the established stars no matter how talented they are. Let me ask you a question: what's the point of NXT? What's the point of developing talent, building them up, giving them character work and in-ring experience if the moment they get to the main roster they're going to be treated as inferior to the previous generation. Bron Breakker was NXT champion. He dominated that brand. He was ready for the main roster. But WWE doesn't care about your NXT accomplishments. They care about whether you're in the inner circle of the people who book the show. Bronson Reed didn't even get a proper NXT run this time. He came back to WWE and immediately started destroying people on the main roster. He was doing exactly what WWE should want from a monster heel, being believable, being intimidating, being over with the audience. But all that work, all that momentum, got thrown away so Roman Reigns could get another win he doesn't need. This is why AEW, despite all its problems, is appealing to some fans. At least AEW tries to build new stars. At least they give young talent wins over established names. At least they don't treat their veterans like they're untouchable gods who can never be beaten. WWE could learn something from that, but they won't because they're too stubborn and too set in their ways. The most frustrating part is this didn't have to be a burial. WWE could have protected everyone. They could have had a schmoz finish. They could have had interference. They could have had a time limit draw. There were so many ways to book this match that would have kept everyone looking strong. But instead, they chose the one option that helped Seth and Roman while hurting Breakker and Reed. That's not incompetence, that's a choice. And mark my words, in 6 months when WWE is wondering why Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed aren't connecting with audiences anymore, when they're wondering why these guys aren't getting the reactions they used to, we're all going to point back to Saturday night's main event and say, this is where you killed their momentum. This is where you told the audience not to take them seriously. This is where you prioritized the past over the future. In conclusion, what happened at Saturday night's main event is a travesty. It's everything wrong with modern WWE booking in one match. Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns destroying Bron Breakker and Bronson Reed accomplished nothing positive. It didn't build new stars. It didn't create compelling storylines. It didn't set up an exciting future. All it did was feed two young, hungry, talented performers to the nostalgia machine while the same old guard maintains their stranglehold on the main event scene. WWE had a chance to do something special. They had a chance to create a moment. They had a chance to build the future. Instead, they chose the safe, boring, predictable route of having the established stars win. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is why WWE will always struggle to create new main eventers. Because they're more interested in protecting the old ones than building the new ones. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Bron and Bronson got screwed? Should they have won at SNME? Or am I being too harsh on WWE's booking? Let me know. And if you're as frustrated as I am with WWE burying their young talent, smash the like button and share this video. WrestlingNewsCC out.